This card enables your plays, basically. If we can't pay for it, we don't have to pay for it. We go and borrow the money from the government, and then we JESMON GX, he spends 8 memory. And
YouTube, Antics here with the swole on, the fro on, and if you need the explainer, I am the Alpha Tamer, but it is not about me. It is about this wonderful person in front of me. Will you please introduce yourself?
Whoa. The light in my room is a little dark right now because my light broke today, and this tournament went very late. But my name is Dashel. I was playing JESMON today at the BT15 Core TCG Online Regionals, and I managed to finish 13th place with a 6-1-1 final record.
13th place with JESMON. Please, Dash, if you would not mind, please take us through the deck.
Let's get right into it. So I've kind of done this in reverse order. We're going to kind of go from the top to the bottom because I think it's more important to talk about the win condition when talking about decks. So we're going to first start out with the eggs, though, because those are pretty important. So we're playing BT12 Digimon here. So the eggs, this is probably going to cause some confusion, but maybe some people have already figured out the reasoning. This is the only egg that kind of does something unique for JESMON. You can choose to play a draw egg. By the time you're drawing from it, you've probably already either won or lost. You can choose to play a DP egg. Might matter like every 20th game. But this one gives us an angle of attack that a lot of opponents are not expecting, and it's very relevant in the current meta, which is that it lets us Crimson Blaze for 7k DP. This clears out Monzemon, and it clears out Devas, two very important thresholds to hit. A lot of random ultimates are also just 7 KDP. And having access to Crimson Blaze, just very good in this meta. There's a lot of play by effect going around. So yeah, we are done with that. That's the eggs. That's the tech card, pretty much the only tech card in the deck. Let's talk about the win condition.
That's actually really cool.
So we are a full all-in GX deck. We run 3 copies of Big Papa to make sure we can find him. 4 would probably be excessive. This is a card that you can only go into with a full-on stack. But yeah, we are on the 3 copies of GX. This is our win con. We are usually swinging 3 times and then either passing turn, or we are unsuspending, keeping turn, and going in for 3 more, sometimes finishing them off with a second swing. I do not play any Rushers or Chimeramon in this deck. I don't like those cards, even though they are very good at stealing games, because I'm not very good at stealing games. You have to often draw specific cards for those. I'm not good at drawing specific cards. I'm already having to find a whole JESMON stack here, you know? So let's go ahead and get into the megas. We've got 3 copies of JESMON X Antibody. So the big thing about this card is that it is just super cheap, 3-cost Evo, very competitively priced, and he can beat over almost anything. This card's usually hanging out around 15k DP. You turn it into your GX, you're probably going to be at 21 or 19. So you are the biggest swinging guy on the table. You can beat over all the other decks, which is really good because it means you're going over the top of the format, which is very good. Now, let's talk about the real star of the deck. And the only reason I think I'm sitting here today, 3 copies of Mr. Genkumon X Antibody. So my roommate, Sean, often tells me about rock, paper, scissors in formats. So rock is the best deck in the format. Paper are the decks that are trying to beat rock. Scissors is the decks that are trying to beat paper. So this is a bit of a scissors deck. Numemon, posited best deck in the format. Very resistant to deletion, very fast. Right. A lot of decks are playing like yellow stuff with lots of recovery, DP reductions, blanket productions to make sure they can clear boards over and over, and bounce to hand and bottom deck effects so that they don't have to worry about on deletion, right? So those guys, they do not feel very good when they see a Genkumon X Antibody across the table from them. And the number one just straightforward play that we are looking for in this deck to win games is to go JESMON X Antibody, GX, and tuck a Genkumon X from trash or hand. That is our win condition about 70% of the time. A lot of times. Let's go ahead and get into our sister mons. I say to all my opponents, stepsister mons. They love it. They think I'm so funny. We've got 3 copies of BT10 Sistermon Blanc. So the reason that we play 3 copies of this card is that, well, one thing this deck cannot protect the GX from is deletion. And there is, in fact, deletion running around right now. There's stuff like Leviamon. So you will need to have protection from that to ensure you can win those matchups. And this card is also very good for two other reasons. A lot of times you're going to evolve into BT6 Savior Huckmon, friend right here, and you're going to have to play out a sister while you don't have a Mega yet. This is the one you want to play in those scenarios so that you can go look for it. Pretty straightforward. It's also not bad sometimes early in the game to play for 3 and just draw 2 cards with it. Pretty reasonable. 2 copies of Sistermon CL BT10. This card is very good in GX specific builds because if your opponent is going to be choking you a lot, which when you're playing JESMON, you will get choked. You will be sitting at 1 or 2 memory most turns. This card enables your plays, basically. If we can't pay for it, we don't have to pay for it. We go and borrow the money from the government, and then we JESMON GX, he spends 8 memory. And a lot of times that's good enough because you have a board of like plus 4K blockers that are resistant to like 3 forms of removal. Yeah, so this card ensures plays when we don't have enough memory to do them with all our boosts. We've got 2 copies of this. This card is just very good. The DP buff is very relevant, lets you hit ridiculous thresholds, and the memory gain unconditional is very good too. And then we've got 2 copies of the blocker sister mod. This is definitely the most conditional one. There's even some argument to cut it down to 1, but this is also one of the cards that can help you shut the door on matchups where you started out behind, because sometimes your opponent's going to be building a board, they're going to succeed, but you will succeed in finding all your stuff just in the nick of time and trying to break their board, right? You sometimes need to avoid their final lethality push, right? Like a DNA or a rusher or a hybrid, and this is your ace in the hole to make sure that they can't push through your final board. All right, Sister Mons. Also, please no one bully me for my random assortment of alt arts and non-alt arts. I built this deck like a week ago.
No bullying here, promise.
Let's talk about this card. This card, I think, is probably the big reason, aside from Genkumonix Antibody, this deck is good right now. My God, this card is good. Let me tell y'all, holy guacamole. Every time I went to this card, I was like, this is a BT6 card? This is printed in BT6. This is like an EX15 card. This card's incredible. Yeah, the amount of value you get both on the front and back of this card is ridiculous. I thought that the starter deck Savior Huck used to be pretty cool until I started playing with this card. Starter deck Savior Huck, not very cool. This card, very cool. I understand why it was limited at that time, honestly. Playing 2 copies of worst JESMON or Savior Huckmon. We think I would prominently declare this is the worst card in the deck. This is a pretty weak card. It does occasionally enable you to do lines, like having this guy in play, playing this card. You can evolve with his effect first into like a Jez X, and then evolve with Sistermon to GX. Only rub with that is this guy has to turn into a Jesmon, so he can't turn into the big Chad Papa. Yeah, but unsuspend on Jez GX, just incredible. Gives this deck the lethality push that I think it was kind of missing before. My God, 3 checks, 3 checks. Your security control matchup is looking pretty nice. All right, so we've got our level 5s. We've got our group of sisters, our stepsisters. Let's talk about the lower end. Not rocket science here, honestly. There's not as much to discuss. So we've got Bao Huckmon. This is the BT13 card. Very powerful wave of support that gave this deck the memory efficiency that it needed to keep up. We've got 2 copies of Bao Huckmon BT6. The deletion effect can definitely come in handy. I did use it a good amount today, but I more or less always see this one unless there's like a floodgate in play. I think the biggest thing to talk about with this is probably that there's only 6 of them. So the thing to kind of understand here is that you don't need to see very many copies of a level 4 in this deck. You are going to need to see 1, max 2. Your first stack is going to have to get the job done most of the time, unless your opponent is fumbling on like permanent development like Tamers. But yeah, this card is very, very good. Sometimes, because of how good the inherit from this card and also this rookie we're playing 4 of is, you can actually play a grind game and just keep playing Sistermons and gaining like huge amounts of memory. Pretty fun. I did that a few times today. So only 6 champions. Don't worry, there are lots of boosts. We're playing 8 rookies. We're playing 4 of the good BT13 one. I don't think a whole lot of commentary needs to be made about this card. It is super efficient. The gain memory makes this deck more like a real stack builder like Mirage, instead of like, well, I hope my first stack that's going to give my opponent 8 memory works out. Now we can actually do proper plays without handing over too much mem. 4 copies of this card. The starter deck Huckmon that gives plus 1k is pretty much blank. This card, however, does dig very deep for our JESMON GX and our JESMON X. The one rub is it does not find Gankumon X, but in a deck where we are playing so few level 4s and 5s, being able to find them 5 deep and take 2, really nice. Fantastic quality searcher, honestly. In the vein of quality searchers, let's talk about the boosts. We are playing so many. We're playing 4 Master to Disciple. We are playing 4 Offense Training. And we are playing last 2 cards in the deck, 2 Red Memory Boost. So
Wow.
Master to Disciple and Offense Training, I realized this in the like 6 playtest games I played with this deck. This card has great synergy with this card because they can be stacked. Unlike Offense Training, Master to Disciple is not locked to a window. It just says the next time you Digivolve, you can reduce the cost by 1. So you can stack them together. If you have 2 of these out and 2 of these out, you can pay 0 for your Savior and then 0 for your JES-X. You're going to be gaining a bunch of memory, hopefully, off of Inheritables and off of Sistermon. So this can allow you to make some just crazy plays with very little memory. The one nasty thing about Offense Training is it doesn't dig very deep and it doesn't find certain cards, so Gankumon and Sistermon. So in the matchups where those really matter and you're on game 2, you should definitely consider keeping hands that have this card, because they find the cards that you will need in those matchups. This card, not as good when you're playing against like blue, for example, because you want the bounce protection from Ganku X, and if you don't open Ganku X, but you do open this, there's a pretty high probability you will not be finding Ganku X, or you're going to have to play a long game, which can be a bad thing for JESMON because the deck is so reliant on boosts. 2 Red Mem Boost, same kind of deal as Offense Training. These are, however, nice because they dig really deep. Against very slow decks like Vaccine or Secon, you can sometimes cycle through your entire deck. Keep in mind what you're putting to the top, because sometimes these 2 cards, Ganku X and JESMON X, you will want to make sure you are getting back around to after you go through the entire deck. Yep, and those are the card choices.
Man, to say this list is spicy is an understatement, I would say. But would you mind taking us through what your matchups were for today?
Yeah, absolutely. So I played against only one Numemon player, and that was my one loss. I played into game 3. It was very close. If I found Crimson Blazes at better times, or he didn't keep Venus Moning me, I think I would have won. But Venus Mon proved to be a very effective way to shut the door on my deck full of when Digivolving effects. That was round 6, I believe. I also tied with Secon. I would have won that one. I played too slowly. I should have played faster. I definitely was going to win in game 3. I think that matchup is actually very favored for this deck. You just need to not hit a first or second check degrade with JESMON GX when you're swinging for 6 checks, which is easier said than done when game 1 he finds a bunch of Karis and degrades early on, and the rest is history. We lost game 1. He had very well positioned degrades. Game 2 I won. Game 3 was going to win, but we tied in time. Other decks we played. Oh my gosh, it was the gamut of yellow. There was a lot of yellow. There was 4 Great Sovereigns, or 4, that's what they're called, right? 4 Great Sovereigns.
Yeah, you got it.
That deck is kind of a yellow deck because they're so reliant on their Fong Longmon for removal. They also have a Zulongmon, very good to have Gankumon X against that card, just shuts down a lot of their avenues of defense. And our DP pumping is very good against a lot of their effects like Zuchamon that delete based on DP. So having big guys is fantastic. We played against that round 1, Devas. In some of those middling rounds, there was a lot of yellow. Played against so much yellow, and that was why I brought this deck, because I felt that there was going to be a lot of blue and yellow trying to beat Numemon, and I was right. I feel so good about it. So we played Yellow Vaccine about, I want to say 3 times. It was 2 or 3 times. I think it was twice. We cleaned the floor with them on stream. You guys can go watch it. They were very entertaining games. The casters could not figure out why I would not swing my JESMON X antibody at the Magnadramon. It was because it had a barrier inheritable. They're like, why isn't he swinging over Magnadramon? It's very funny. And there were games against Mirage. There was one match against Mirage. I took him down. Mirage has quite literally no counterplay to this card. They cannot beat this card when it's active. They have to just wait for a turn or try to attack past it, which is very difficult because he's usually a 16k blocker. Very effective. Yeah, let's see. So we played Yellow Vexen twice, Mirage. We played Nume lost, played Second Tide. We played Lugo once. He bricked in game three, and I took that one for free. Games one and two were very close. I think Crimson Blaze and Security mattered in one of the games.
Sick. Well, I mean, honestly, I'm not really surprised that you did so well. You're an incredible deck builder. For those of you who don't know, Dash has won a regional before here in Dallas, one of our offline regionals, a few formats back. Incredible player, incredible deck builder. Have nothing but praise for you. Do you have any shout outs that you'd like to give?
The first one is going to be right to you, my man. I'm so happy to give you this profile because Anthony shared with me a BT16 deck that was running JESMON GX to try out Mr. Magnamon X Antibody is unaffected. And I was looking at it and I was like, gosh, Genkamon X actually did a pretty good impression of that card, actually. Turned out pretty well. I took out the Seiken Meppas because in testing they were sitting in my hand doing nothing about 99% of the time and putting Crimson Blaze instead, which proved to be an awesome choice with the Digimons. So thank you for sharing the list with me, Anthony. Small modifications and it really ran well. Um, and then shout out to my roommate Sean, who I think I did not play this deck at any locals. There was no regionals or locals or anything testing. I did kitchen table testing with my roommate, and he was playing Mirage. Mirage is our format benchmark deck. We played against everything because honestly, if your deck is poorly built, Mirage will usually just smoke it like 9 games out of 10. And I was beating Mirage, and I was very excited about that fact. So, yeah, shout out to him. And that's going to be about it. Shout out to my team, AD. I did not test this list with them, but I very much appreciate their help on most things. And that's about it. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, man, thanks for the shout out, but also thanks for doing the deck profile for the channel. I think this is going to help a lot of people who they just love JESMON. I think JESMON is a fan favorite here in the U.S. So being able to see it, hopefully, you know, show up in the format a little bit more, I think will be really fun as well. So thanks again.
Thank you. And for you JESMON fans out there, let me tell you, this deck ran nice. I know you're looking at these 8 rookies and 6 champions and thinking I'm unhinged. Trust me, guys. You gotta try it. Okay. This deck, oh, it's like butter. I just boost, 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 boost. My opponent plays a forecast tamer. I go bap, bap, bap. Anyways, thank you so much, Antics.
Yeah, of course. We'll chat YouTube. You guys heard it here. Antics here with the swole on the fro on, and I already gave you the explainer, but I'm gonna give it to you one more time. I am the Alpha Tamer. Peace.